Hi everyone, I wanted to share a word about this week's Parsha, Parashat Vayera. It begins with the story of God appearing to Abraham. And just as God appears to Abraham, Abraham looks up and he sees three men approaching his tent. And rather than continue his moment with God, Abraham jumps up and he runs off to serve these three men, who it turns out are angels. He wants to perform the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, welcoming guests. And he brings them in and he gives them food and drink. And the question always arises, how is it that if God is in front of you, it's okay to sort of put God on hold and run off to do something else, even something as important as the mitzvah of welcoming guests? There are a variety of different explanations for how it is that Abraham does this. But one that I like very much is a text from the Me'or Einayim, Rabbi Menachem of Chernobyl. Actually, this text appears in this book here, which I highly recommend. It's Hasidic and mystical texts with modern commentary. And, the Me'or Einayim basically is making an argument about what is actually happening when we do a mitzvah the right way. He says, yes, it seems as though God appears before Abraham, and then Abraham moves on to do something else. But what's really happening here is that Abraham is longing for the experience of being in God's presence everywhere he goes, and certainly every time he does a mitzvah. When God appears before you, of course, you are having direct relationship with God. But what Abraham really wants to emphasize is that not only am I in front of God right here when I'm speaking with God, or God appears to me, but God is with me when I go off to help these three travelers, or when I, for example, light Shabbat candles, or when I pray, when I give tzedakah, when I honor my parents, when I make decisions not to do the wrong thing. A real mitzvah, the Me'or Einayim says, is one in which we feel connected with God in the doing of the mitzvah. In rabbinic literature, there's this debate about the minimum amount of concentration or kavanah that you need to perform a mitzvah. If you say a prayer, but you have your mind elsewhere, does it count? Or do you need to redo the prayer? And, these are important discussions, I think, from a legal point of view. But I also think that the Me'or Einayim is not trying to tell us what the minimum is. He's trying to help us aspire to the fullness of what a mitzvah can really mean in our lives. He says, the real doing of the mitzvah, regardless of what that mitzvah is in experiencing the Shekhinah, experiencing God's presence in your life. Now, I think that there are some mitzvot which we do, which we naturally imagine that they, will involve a real feeling of being in God's presence. And then there are mitzvot which we might not imagine have that same spirit. But the Me'or Einayim wants us to remember that we want to approach the doing of all mitzvot with this idea that the opportunity is there to be in God's presence. Yes, when God appears to Abraham at the beginning of the narrative, of course, God is there. But not just there. Abraham says, please, God, be with me when I go off running around trying to gather the food and drink and all the other things that I need to do for these guests. For us, too, the idea is that we should be aspiring to have God in our lives, even in the little things, even the little things which aren't really so little if God is with you in those moments. Something which I think we might want to ponder over this coming Shabbat and try to work on in our everyday lives. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.